Sorry. Good morning, everybody. It being just after 9 o'clock, we'd like to bring the Wednesday, May 15th Human Services Committee to order. Savannah, if we could call the roll.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Lewis here.
Silva,
Silva's here.
Carver,
Carver's here.
Linder,
You're here.
Surges,
Surge is here.
Tepe.
For clarity's sake, we are, Mr. Tepe as an ex officio gives us the quorum that we need to proceed forward. But I do need acceptance for remote attendance for Lewis, Tarver.
Lewis
I'm
is
sorry,
here.
Al, no, where'd my sticky note go?
Permission.
Tarver. Lindner, Silva and Tarver, if they choose to go remotely, and I believe we had Ms. Silva and Dr. Silva and Mr. Tarver on remote. In favor of that, any issues? We have Ms. Lewis, can we have a approval of minutes of the April 10th, 2024?
Unanimous consent. Absolutely.
Is that voice vote or
No, it's no vote.
No.
perfect?
Without objection, so ordered.
No objection. Public comments. I don't know that we have anybody in the room. We do have one online. That was in. Jennifer, I see you. Jennifer Laystrom.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
We can. Blair, can we? Say it again.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Laystrom.
There we go. Gotcha.
Okay, great. I apologize, I'm not there in person. I work at the hospital and I just got off a overnight shift, so I decided to do the online.
There we go.
So I know I only have 3 minutes, so I'll be very brief. I live in this county. I live in Kane County. I'm a social worker by trade, and my question or proposal verbally is there any way that we could somehow have a home for women, not a shelter, but a home for women in this county? I work at the hospital, and I'm a counselor, and I come across patients every day that are homeless, that are women that are in their young years, between age 20 and 30. And I've been a social worker for 10 years plus, and I'm noticing that as time goes by, there's more and more young women that need a home. And I would love to open a home for women and run it and help women get on their feet. I'm hoping that our county can somehow help me do that. And I'm wondering if there's any way that I could give you like a written proposal that I could come before the board with to show what my ideas are and what I can do to help the women in my county and my community.
Jennifer, while we normally during public comments don't interact with the commenter, I feel compelled to say we should probably get you hooked up with Miss Cheryl Strathman, and who is over the health department committee, and Michael Isaacson would probably be best served, unless there's anybody else in the room that has a Mr. Tepe comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's an organization headquartered in Elgin called the Crisis Center.
Hang on, Jennifer, can you hear him okay?
Yes.
The organization called the Crisis Center. And although they're not a permanent home as what you're looking for, they're an organization that really primarily works with women that are having some kind of issue. Quite frequently, it's a battered housewife syndrome, but other than that, they also provide support. They're people that know how to do that. I personally know the executive director and others, and I'll be happy to put you in contact with them and happy to provide you with whatever other assistance I can, as well as putting you in touch with Cheryl Strathman. So,
Yeah, we can get you in a direction, absolutely. If you would like to reach out to any one of us on the committee, me personally, I will shepherd
Okay.
that through. And to add to Vern, I do know up in East Dundee, Illinois, we've just opened, and this is a private venture, but it is a home for unwed mothers and to give them options and support. I think they're allowed to live there for 6 months during and just after the pregnancy. There was a church that approached looking for some help. I believe it's an organization out of Florida, and I believe they can house up to six participants at a time. And I just found that to be just wonderful. My wife and I personally have donated and helped out up there. I think that was a worthy cause. So and my point being, I think there's lots of support and by all means, let's get you hooked up and see where we can go.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Mr. Kenyon.
Don't forget PADS. PADS and Elgin takes in people. They have families too.
Okay. And Pads, why am I at a loss for the young lady's name?
McNamee.
McNamee. What's her first name? Eileen McNamee, yes.
Yeah,
Eileen
very good.
McNamee up at Pads is absolutely wonderful and she really does a great job running the Pads of Elgin. Jennifer, are you from a specific area, like North End, South End, Aurora or Elgin?
I live in West Dundee, and I'm familiar
Oh, there
with
you go.
PADS. I used to run PADS at my church, and I'm not really talking about a shelter. I'm talking about a woman's home where several women could live like in a house, and like a house setting.
We can exchange in the other bed.
Okay,
Well, yeah, but my
That-
clothes were.
hang on a
So,
second.
thank you.
Blair, can you? Mavis, could you mute yourself?
Cliff,
I think she did.
Can we just,
Miss Lewis?
how about we all send our resources to you when you transfer them?
Perfect.
Because I know of some kind of housing things in Aurora that she might want to talk to about how getting started and things.
Dynamite.
is-
Jennifer, I think you have lots of good input and support here. If you focus that email to me, I'll make sure it gets to the right direction and the board members can share.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so very much. Appreciate your time.
Okay.
Okay, if we're done with public comments, monthly financial reports are on file. Ms. Hopkinson is the room. Is there anything that's out of tolerance we need to address? Ms. Labrillo, I think we are loaded today. Is there anything out of tolerance in any one of your reports? And I would ask the committee if item 8, A through F, if we could bypass that unless there is a specific item that Jamie feels we need to discuss.
No, everything is within tolerance. You also, number 9 is also just the training report. I do want to just, I think everybody's kind of noticed, we have a puppy in the room. So if anybody needs to hug a puppy, come on back and hug a puppy. It'll make you happy.
Thank you so very much. Yes, Ms. Lewis.
You want to explain how this puppy program is going to work? Like as far as signing the waivers and things?
Yes, we, just noting that, mood can be elevated by the presence of an animal. Just bring a little cheer to some of these meetings. We've invited animal control.
Yesterday. It should have been.
So
Share, yes.
Not overwhelm.
we didn't want to overwhelm. This is a nice place to start and kind of feel this out. We don't usually have a room full of the public and stuff. So ultimately, we do need, anyone who's, interested, particularly, especially if there's, members of the public or staff wanting to come and interact with the puppy. They'd be happy to, move to a separate area. If someone is actually want to interact with the puppy, you certainly can. And we have waivers that can be signed for people that want to, spend time with the puppy. And so, if you're interested, check with Brett and he'll be happy to tell you about this wonderful puppy
Chair Silva.
who is available for adoption at Kane County Animal Control as well.
Mr. Chair Gums.
Yes, Ms. Gomes.
I'm not on the committee, but I wondered if there's any way that if Brett could put him on the camera, because we have people watching remotely.
And also,
And I believe Ms. Labrillo would be thrilled to do that. Yeah,
Also, if,
More
if,
than
the
happy to.
public.
There you go. There you go.
if Brett or his kennel manager could also just say a couple things about the brand, the breed of beagle and what kind of family is best for them and just a real little quick
Come on up.
And what's the puppy's name again?
Emma.
Good morning. My name is Cassie. I'm the shelter manager at King County Animal Control. This over here is Emma. We are guessing she's a Beagle Hound mix. She's about 9-10 weeks old. When she was brought to us as a stray, and she's been with us for a little bit now. She just got spayed yesterday, and she will be up for adoption. We think that she would do great with kids. We've had her around a couple kids. She's done great. Just any household that is willing to put in the time and effort into hanging out with a puppy and the training that she may need.
If I didn't already have three.
Thank you.
What's one more, Michael?
One more camera entering the room. Here we go, Julie. That's by lose control of a meeting. We're going all in. So it's
Something to you.
dogs now. Yes.
We've gone to
Thank
the
you.
dogs.
Thank you. Thank you, Cliff.
Okay. If we're going to bypass 8A through F and 9A. Coming to old business, 10A, resolution amending resolution 23-518, approving the Kane County per diem meal rates for calendar year 2024. Jamie, why don't you give us a little introduction to that and why that came back to committee?
This did originate from the auditor's office, but Ms. Wegman was at a conference and she wasn't able to come today. This originated from the auditor wanting receipts for meals. The per diem that was previously in place did not require receipts, so employees were able to take a lump sum for the day, whether they spent the money on the meal or not. That is allowable under a per diem policy. So this proposes to change it to a maximum meal reimbursement amount. So the dollar amounts have not changed. They are the same that were in place previously. This really seeks to change it from a flat per diem to a reimbursement based upon a receipt. The auditor did provide a little information. I understand that this was a question that came up. If this went through the committee process and I believe was sent back by the board back to committee for review. The auditor did pull some data that was requested and she sent it to me to provide to you. This is based on 2023 data. There were 423 invoices, which included 6 transactions that are on P cards. P card transactions do require receipts, even under the current policy. There were 2,486 meals reimbursed in 2023 for a total of $53,917. 178 receipts were provided to those 2,486. There were 3 transactions that were over the per diem amount that they are only aware of were over the per diem amount because receipts were provided for those. 2 of those occurred on P cards.
Okay, I have heard arguments for and against this. The biggest one being the notion that providing the receipts is going to take time and we don't want to slow people's workday down. On the other hand, the auditor is simply asking for a receipt. I'm not personally understanding the conundrum here, but I will open it up to the committee and ask for guidance as it was sent back to us. Ms. Lewis.
So I read this and then I did go and I went and did a little research on the IRS side about the term per diem. And basically the term says that you're allowed, like I think in our case, it's $65 total for our meals. And you're allowed, according to IRS, to spend them per day. So per diem is per day. So whether it's breakfast, lunch, supper, it doesn't really matter. You're allowed that $65 per day. And now to me, I was looking at and I thought $65 per day is pretty much nothing. And why should we nitpick about you only spent 14 for breakfast and you spent 15 at lunch? And I think we're just putting restrictions on something that really isn't important. So I would rather just stick with the per diem, period.
To clarify, that is not a change that's being proposed here. The amount per meal is only when you are only getting one meal. For example, if you're gone the whole day, you can use up to $65. And the difference, the reason that the per meal amounts are listed is, for example, if you were at a conference that ran from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., you would only need lunch. So the individual amounts are only provided for when you only need that individual meal or when you're not for a full day. When the auditor is seeking to, and you can adjust this however you want. So that's part of this discussion. So if you just want to make it $65 per day and still require receipts, you certainly can. The reason to require receipts is to state that if an employee, for example, were to only spend $30 on their meals for that day because they chose to go for fast food instead of a sit-down meal, that they would then keep and pocket the extra $35. And that is allowable under the current policy of a per diem. And the auditor seeks to only reimburse actual expenses rather than provide a lump sum without a receipt. So that is really the core of what we're trying to get at here, is that it's an actual reimbursement for what the employee paid and not an opportunity for them to make additional money by spending less and then claiming the whole amount.
Jamie, I appreciate that because I wasn't necessarily picking up on that. So all she wants, Anita, are you understanding that?
I understand her explanation, but I don't agree with it.
Okay.
Because if we take the term per diem out of there, then we're saying that we're not just going to give them the $65 because per diem is per day. If you take that out and change the language to what she wanted, I think that she's going to say, oh, I'm only going to reimburse you $14 for breakfast. And if you spent 15, too bad, I'm not going to reimburse you for that extra dollar. And I'm only going to reimburse you for 16 for lunch. And if you spend 18, too bad, even if you didn't spend supper. Because outside of her, we've had these things where she said, you shouldn't, if you're going to a conference and lunch is provided, you should not be eating lunch. So I just think this, I think we're, as my colleague next to me said, I think we're being, what did he say?
Penny wise, dollar.
Penny wise and pound foolish. And I think that Penny's just, I think she's putting more work upon herself than needs to be. And
Jamie,
$65.
What did she say the total meal cost was, just so we can identify pennies and pounds?
Total, I'm sorry, which total meal? You know, to Ms. Lewis's point, if you would like this rewritten to require receipts but not break it down by meal, you certainly can. If you would like it written to have just a per diem and or exchange the word per diem, which has an IRS implication, and just change it the maximum meal reimbursement per day, so that you still have that per day function, but without the term per diem, which has an IRS implication, you certainly can. So if you have feedback in a way that you'd like this rewritten, I would suggest that you put that forth and give the auditor an opportunity to rewrite this to your
But she,
specifications.
and again, to my question, was it $53,000 is what we've paid in employee meals?
53,917 in 2023 in meal requests.
I mean, and I would be interested to say, if that was on a receipt basis, would that only be 25,000? But I think we're beginning to split hairs there, but I guess if I'm the auditor, my job is to split hairs. If I'm the human services guy, I guess, hey, we want to be friendly to everybody. So I get it. Let's go with the committee members first. Mr. Kenyon.
In my previous life, I was 10 years on the Illinois Farm Bureau, and we always got reimbursed, but you didn't get reimbursed until you brought the receipt in.
Yeah.
And that that got all the expenses. I mean, some people did it every month, some people did it every 6
But
months.
Mike, I think what
Once you
she's,
get used to it, it's no big deal.
I agree, but I think the question is, are you going to get reimbursed for your actual receipts or are you
Yes.
going to get the $65? And I think
Extra
that's,
receipts. That's all you really deserve.
and that's the question at hand, I believe. Are we saying we don't care? We just want to give you $65 or the equivalent? Or are we saying it has to be the actual amount spent? I believe that's where the rubber meets the road on that, on this.
Once you get used to it, it's no big deal.
Deb?
I think it's okay to do the $65 a day. And part of my reasoning is that I don't believe anyone is traveling or attending conferences or eating meals without it being carefully vetted by the department or office. And if someone has built into her budget that 3 employees are going to attend this conference and this is the airfare and this is the meal cost and it's coming out of my budget, I trust our executive directors and our office holders to be watching that enough to trust them. I think we're second guessing the people to whom we've given that responsibility. Now, I realize that I think it was in Saginaw County that the county board treated itself to extravagant dinners on its meeting dates.
We had
And
hot dogs yesterday, sister, and I paid for them, so.
That,
Extravagant hot dogs. yes.
And I would certainly object to that. And I would certainly hope that there are watchdogs everywhere looking for overstepping. But I don't see this as overstepping.
Thank you. Penny, I do see you online, but let Mr. Roth, you had a comment, and Ms. Juby.
I've got a hand up.
Yeah, the question is it considered taxable income?
No, it's a reimbursement, so it's not being taxed.
Okay.
It's being paid on a personal expense voucher directly to the employee.
And then how many employees were, got reimbursed? And then the other question is, what level were they?
We don't have that data here. The auditor would have to provide you that information at a later date, but
Okay.
could probably do
You know,
that
because if
research
it's
for you.
lower level employees, I think, for them, it's more of a hassle, more of a inconvenience, and if they get $5 extra, so what, but we need to have controls, make sure it's not one person spending 50,000, I guess.
Yeah,
Because
and-
that's where the fraud comes in.
right. Without actually receiving receipts, it's kind of hard to make those determinations.
Oh, but you would know who's put in for the reimbursement.
The auditor should be able to get that for you. Yes.
So is it 5 people spending the 40 out of that 53,000 or 1,000 people?
We can get that data.
Right. The
Ms.
auditor
Juby?
can get that.
So I don't believe that having the actual receipt for reimbursement is onerous. I think that if you want to be reimbursed, you hold on to your receipt, and I think we should do it for up to $65 a day because some people choose not to have breakfast and lunch and then have it at dinner. However, I have a question where you have whereas the term per diem is used by the Internal Revenue Service to indicate receipts are not needed. I have scoured the IRS website, and the only thing I have found for their explanation of per diem is allowance paid for your employees for lodging, meal, and incidental expenses incurred when traveling. So my suggestion would be, if this were to go forward like that, that we strike that line, because I don't believe that line is accurate unless you have another definition of per diem from the IRS that wasn't on their website.
Ms. Wegman?
Hello, yeah, I'm here. I am in the middle of a conference, so I did miss part of the conversation. But I did want to try to address some of the questions that may have been presented. One being that the $65 a day, just utilizing it as $1 per day. And I believe that Commissioner Allen had mentioned something to the effect of when we go to conferences and meals being included, that that we shouldn't be penalized if we wanted to eat outside of a meeting. I believe that was what the comment was. Unfortunately, under county policy, if a meal is included in a conference payment, the county policy is that you are to eat that meal or pay out of pocket for an outside meal. So having the meal breakdown, breakfast, lunch, dinner, if a meal is paid for in a conference, the employee would not be eligible for the lunch meal or the dinner meal that was part of the conference payment already. So it is really important to maintain a breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And it is broken down. And this is done pretty much throughout all the counties here in Illinois. There's a breakfast, lunch, and dinner per diem. So I do find that to be very important, although whatever the county board decides, we certainly will go ahead and approve invoices accordingly. But we do find that to be an important breakdown. I'm not so certainly concerned with having receipts included. We were looking to utilize the per diem terminology potentially in some other updating of policies, and we came across some obstacles, which is why we were looking at changing the terminology. Whether there's receipts or not, we just need to have a better definition.
Penny, can you respond at all to Ms. Juby's request? There's a line that says, whereas the term per diem is used by the Internal Revenue Service to indicate receipts are not needed. Was that research or was that boilerplate from the old that was just left in? Are you sure that line needs to be there, or can it be removed?
So that line, I believe, would specifically relate to our finance director's interpretation of the per diem policy, and is the specific reason that I'm requesting the board's consideration in changing the terminology from per diem to maximum daily allowed amount or allowance amount.
Okay, Kathy is in the room. Ms. Hopkinson, do you have anything on that? And then I'd like to call this for a vote.
Yeah, per diem. So the IRS definition is allowance. And it says that an allowance is in lieu of paying actual expenses. So the whole notion of per diem is you're getting a fixed dollar amount versus reimbursing actual expenses. So when Penny was putting this policy together, we had talked about the use of the word per diem. And I think everybody is familiar with that term, right? And it is a fixed amount. So if we were going to be changing any kind of policies, I had suggested that perhaps we shouldn't use the word per diem because it connotes to most people a fixed amount without receipts.
I understand that, and it would be my opinion that we're not ready for a vote on this, that we might need to do some homework on this.
I have a curve.
Yes, sir, Mr. Kenyon.
In my previous life, sometimes
Microphone.
you'd go to some place, let's say Chicago, and you'd stay at the Hilton Hotel.
How many lives have you had?
Just two.
Okay.
This one and the other.
He
But
gets
you'd
9.
stay there and breakfast at the Hilton Hotel might be $20. And if you ate at lunch there, it might be 30 and dinner might be. So in that event, they should be they should be paid for by the slips, by the receipts. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think that's where it gets to then, what is the dollar amount allowed?
I mean, there
right.
should be no dollar amount in that case, because if we said you had to go to Hilton Hotel and listen to a conference, they would have to spend more money than natural, they or anybody, no matter what level you're at.
Ms. Gumbs?
Oh, thank you. I'm not on the committee, so I just want to weigh in a little bit. I appreciate the efforts to change this, but as always, I have an opinion. I'm having trouble with trying to determine at this level if somebody spends $14 on breakfast, which I don't know where you can have breakfast for $14 anymore, by the way, just
My
FYI.
house, I have my house.
I'm coming over tomorrow morning.
Friday.
But I guess the point is, if we determine, and we do that, the county board does that in November, how much money we're gonna allow per day. Why should we just, this is a question in my brain. Why should we care if somebody spends $30 on breakfast and $30 on dinner, or $15 on breakfast and $40 on dinner? I mean, because I might not eat breakfast. And to Mr. Kenyon's point, I agree that if you're at a conference, there's an opportunity oftentimes to eat something, but if you're at a conference with 5,000 people, that may not be the option when you're trying to collaborate with your neighboring counties. I say that from experience. So you have a sidebar with your neighboring counties. And I just think that the per diem is a well-established standard in the IRS. It's been around forever. I don't have any problem with requirements of receipts. I think that would be normal. But I just have my issue is, I don't care how much you spend on breakfast. I don't care how much you spend on dinner. We're going to give you this amount of money, because you can't go to dinner for $50. You just can't.
Well, we could do it at
So,
my house.
I mean, if you want to eat McDonald's, you still can't do it. So I feel like we're kind of, I want to make sure that everything's appropriate for our finance director and our auditor. But I think that the base, and again, whatever they need for receipts and all that is great, but I don't believe we should be nitpicking on that dollar amount, because that's just my opinion.
Thank you. Mr. Linder?
Yeah, thank you. I sort of see this as a solution in search of a problem. In my previous life, and again, we were people who traveled a bit more than our county employees do, but there were about 60 employees total, and someone spent basically their full time going over receipts for these things that were, already acknowledged to have a daily limit. I think we're creating more work for what we might save. If we have some sort of feeling that somebody is going to bring a protein bar and eat it and skip lunch and cheat us out of a few dollars, well, we've already asked them to be away from home. I just don't think it's worth what it's going to take in terms of employees getting their voucher back, saying, well, this receipt only said lunch. It didn't say how many entrees were on the receipt, and blah, blah, blah. I just think we ought to leave it the way it is. That's my opinion.
Michael, thank you so much. Do we have a motion on the floor for this?
Can I-
think so.
Cliff, could you ask Ms. Wegman what policy number she was referencing? Please.
We take that offline, I think,
Okay.
for this particular.
Yeah.
Do we have a motion on the floor? We do not. Let's move on. Item 10B, ordinance creating Illinois residency requirements for county employees. Jamie, once again, I believe this was birthed here, moved up, kicked back, thrown out, revived. Here we are again. Can we move this once and for all? Because I'm kind of feeling like that puppy chasing my tail in a circle on this one, so.
I suppose that's up to you guys. If you want to move it forward once and for all, if you want changes, you have further discussion, I'm available to discuss, or, ultimately, when we look at this process, we really need to limit our non-routine activities to help keep expenses and risk under control. And that is what we are aiming to do here. So
if I can, and Ms. Lewis, keep me in line on this. My understanding was simply that I believe there was consensus saying everybody wants this policy, but we want to be able to grandfather employees that are already not in state. And we were trying to come up with a reasonable period of time that made sense to keep them. And I believe we said 5 years seemed reasonable. Am I mistaken on that? And is that where this sits today?
the original presentation that we put forward when this started is what is up in front of you right now, which is a grandfather clause that just allows us to keep the ones we have and does not allow any new ones. In this committee, through discussion, you determined that you wanted to put a limit, a number of years to phase those existing ones out, in which those employees would either need to establish residency in Illinois, or we would have to end their employment and find someone else. So this committee put, I believe it was 3 years during discussion when this came forward the first time, and then it went through with the 3-year limitation. So it grandfathered existing employees with 3 years to phase them out. And then in the board, I think they requested that it go back to not having a time limit on it. So what we've put up in front of you now is the one that grandfathers, the very last paragraph, you can see it grandfathers out-of-state employees currently on the
Indefinitely?
indefinitely.
Okay, and then my second question to this is, how do we handle the situation where an employee might, there's a fine line between Hebron and Lake Geneva, you know, for that employee that might be literally a mile over the border, is this hard and fast, or is there some geographic area that says if you're within 50 miles of the border, we would consider, how?
The law is hard and fast. The state of Wisconsin doesn't care if you live 5 inches into their state, they want your taxes. So ultimately, that's not a provision that this board can adjust.
Has there been any communication from any department head to you that they have an employee that is maybe just on the cusp of the border, so that's a concern?
No, that hasn't been brought to my attention.
Thank you. Could I have a motion to move this forward, please?
Lewis motions.
Lewis
Tarver
motions,
seconds.
We have a second.
Kenny
Mr.
will
Tarver
second.
seconds. Any discussion on this? Deb, you're chomping at the bit.
I just wanted to verify, are we moving the resolution as it is currently written, as it came out of committee last time?
We're moving the resolution on screen now that was in the packets that says there's no grandfather clause. If they work now, they're in, but future is not.
Okay.
Is that, Jamie, am I fundamentally
There is a grandfather clause that allows current employees to stay on the payroll.
indefinitely? There's not
Indefinitely.
a sunset. The sunset.
There is no
has been-
sunset provision. There is no number of years. It is anyone currently on the payroll on the effective date of this ordinance is exempt from this ordinance.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Mr.
Yeah,
Shepro.
Shepro, just to clarify, the change is the deletion of the phase out.
Grandfather, phase out,
So
correct.
now it's simply the employee is grandfathered for the period of their employment is the change.
Right, there's no sunset to it.
Yeah.
Savannah, please call the roll. The vote, sorry.
Mr. Chair, may I ask a
Um,
question?
No.
Okay.
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Juby.
So I just have a clarifying question. May I direct it to Ms. Liberlo?
Absolutely.
So if someone lives in Wisconsin and drives into work every single day, there's tax implications for that?
There is. They're a resident of Wisconsin.
Okay. So what kind of tax implications are there for that?
They need to pay state taxes to Wisconsin.
Okay, thank you.
Please call the vote.
Allen,
Alan, aye.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Silva,
Silva, yes.
Tarver,
Tarver, yes.
Linder,
Linder, yes.
Surges.
Surges, yes.
Passes.
Yes.
Oh, he,
That we
he,
have in-person quorum now. So I was just wondering.
I'm sorry, ASA Shepro, if
Yes.
Mr. Tepe was required as ex officio for quorum,
I believe if
Does
he's.
he vote?
Yes, if he's here for the quorum, he's entitled to vote.
He is not here for the.
burned, oh, he's not here for the quorum because
Oh,
Deb's
Deb.
here.
Oh, that's right. So he's okay.
Yeah, she was late though.
Vern, you've been demoted from voting privileges.
Point of order, I'm not sure that's correct. If an individual is here and formed the quorum at the start of the meeting, he needs to vote throughout the meeting.
I would love to have that clarified so votes aren't muddied, and I don't have that answer. I will, if we need to make a call on that, or can we move forward?
I,
Like, it's not a big deal. I've
Yeah.
just, you know,
No, no, I'm worried about other votes. Yes. I
Yeah.
don't want a voting question because of that. So as long as we pass with flying colors, I guess I'm okay. Mike, did you have your hand up or did you just take it down?
Yeah, I just took it down. It had been up.
Okay, thank you. I request permission to move item 11C up in front of A and B. Anybody have a problem with that? Okay, let's address item C, resolution authorizing the issuance of a request for proposal for external compensation analysis and review of position grading. Ms. Labrillo, if you will introduce that for us.
Certainly, if you remember in the last Human Services, we talked about this and the board this committee expressed a desire to proceed with an external compensation analysis. We did some research. We looked at the compensation analysis that McHenry and Lake did and what they paid for those analysis to help get a better idea of what something would cost us. So looking at a scope, we did attach a scope which would include both external compensation analysis based on comparable agencies, as well as a review of our grading structure for compatibility with neighboring counties and to avoid compression and other types of issues. So that full review, we have estimated to cost no more than $150,000. Based on the timelines that McHenry and Lake have seen, I would expect this to take approximately 6 months, depending on the timeline available for the vendor when they can begin. It looks like it's a approximately 3-month process. So overall, for time for the vendor to get it included, it looks like about 6 months. So ultimately, this resolution, there's 2 things to consider. First, one thing we could do is we could put this in budget for 2025 and go through the RFP process, choose a vendor, get set up with a start date, and then have work begin on December 1. So we could add this to the 2025 budget. That's why I do not have a budget adjustment on the bottom. If you would like to start this in fiscal year 2024, then we would need a budget adjustment, and that money would need to come from reserves.
But this, as it sits, authorizing the issuance of a request for proposal for external compensation. So we're just asking for quotes, if you will, from vendors to do this. And we're saying in an amount not to exceed 150,000. We are not awarding this to a vendor.
No, the award would
back.
still come back, but again, to understand, if we're going to go out to do this, what we expect this to cost, it would still come before you as a resolution to approve a contract if we had a vendor.
Is there a downside for not doing this? I mean, we should be doing this just to find out, but then again, we couldn't sign a letter of intent yesterday to research a building. So I don't want to step into a hornet's nest here, but I don't see the downside to doing this.
As long as you are willing to pay for a study, if you decide you want it done, that's just why we want to that's why we've brought it forward and make sure that the board does want to conduct this study, knowing that it will cost up to $150,000.
Mr. Roth?
Roth here. Once you get the results of the RFQ or RFP, you'll know what the cost is, and then we can make the determination at
That's why I'm
that
going with
point.
this.
Also, could part of it be partly budgeted this year and partly budgeted next year, depending on when we start? It may occur that way anyway.
That's why we don't have a budget adjustment on here
Right,
yet.
and that's why I'm saying, let's not worry about it now.
I
Let's
agree.
move forward
Totally agree.
and then determine later.
And Bill, just so we're clear, the RFQ and RFQ is request for qualifications. That's not what we're doing.
I wasn't sure. That's why I
Yeah, we're
said both.
I'm just clarifying. We're actually asking for a proposal.
So it'd be an
Yes, this would be
RFP.
an RFP we would be doing.
I stand corrected. Thank you.
Okay, members of the committee, could I ask for a motion, please?
Lewis, a motion.
Second?
Second.
Ms. Allen, second. Any conversation on that? Please call the vote.
Allen,
Alan, I.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Silva,
Silva, yes.
Carver,
Carver, yes.
Linder,
Linder, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
and Tepi.
Tepe, yes.
Thank you. Passes.
And
Yes.
Kathy, Ms. Hopkinson, if we could please note that in your budget discussions going forward, maybe throw that in someplace to say, you know, we will move, this obviously needs to go to finance, I'm assuming, and then executive, and then the board. But while you're master planning this upcoming budget, if that could be included someplace, we can pull it out if it fails later, but I would assume that this is a good thing, so. Okay. Ms. Allen?
In all fairness, we should probably be offering $150,000 into Miss Labrilla's department just to say thank you for all the work that they did.
Sister, amen.
Or you could give her 150,000 per diem
Yeah, okay, we're
Deal
not
allowance.
going there. Okay, thank you so much.
breakfast.
11A, resolution authorizing job title and pay grade changes for Information Technologies Department. I, again, Anita, hold my feet to the fire on this, but I do believe that this committee did a yeoman's task last year of the internal equity study and grading positions. And as Ms. Allen pointed out so eloquently yesterday, we said at that time there was going to be bumps in the road and we were going to try and adjust things and fix things as we saw problems occur. I think I can report on solid ground here that it's been 6 months. And our actions are working. The goal, the challenge, the charter, the commission that we were charged with was 70% of our operating budget is salaries. And some of our ordinances and county codes seem to be a bit wonky on things and maybe in a little bit of conflict. And we have, this committee specifically has tried to do those housekeeping issues and clean things up as we've gone along. And one of those was to introduce the grading position. I think there's only been 2 items that have come up. This tool to help manage is absolutely successfully working. And this is just one of those hurdles that we need to come across. And Roger, you serve such an important role here at the county. Our appreciation is heartfelt, but unfortunately, you get to be the guy who tests the metal on a couple of these. And there's nothing personal on this. It's part of the system. Let's work it out. But I do believe there's a little bit of communication gap between what this department's expectations might be compared to that department's expectation, and how does it all play? So this morning, we have a department head, we have a human services department head, we have a financial department head. And if we could all just get on the same page and figure out what the easiest way to smooth the speed bumps are, that would be, and Deb, I think that's to the spirit of your comment yesterday. Okay, and so could I have a motion for resolution authorizing job title and pay grade changes for the Information Technologies Department?
So moved.
Kenyon,
Second.
Allen, second. Conversation on that. Roger, would you like to come up and explain what's going on?
Good morning, Roger Fonstock with IT and Building Management. So I think the executive summary for this one spells out the basic details of what we're asking for. During the budget process, we were doing the position entry and titles, and we were working with finance in that process. And there were a few titles that were trying to be changed from one particular title to another. It didn't change the budgeted amount for the salary, but it changed the title. So one is a desktop support analyst, grade 1 to a systems administrator 1. The grade will change from 435 to 437, which is a grade change, but the compensation that we budgeted is sufficient to start a person as a system administrator 1 in the new grade. Same for the second one, which is a network and PC support analyst to a junior web developer. the grade changes and the title will change, but the amount that we budget for the position is what we intend to hire them at. So these are title changes and grade changes. These were requested again during the budget process. We were trying to get them changed. There's a lot of work going on in the budget, and I realize that. After the resolution 23-541, which put in the compensation and position management policy, we were informed by both HR and finance that if you want to make these changes, they have to go through the committee process. So we're here today asking for those two positions to get their title changes and the grade changes. We plan to hire the people within the amount budgeted. So that's all we have.
Ms. Hopkinson, do you, oh, I'm so sorry. Deb, do you have a question of Roger?
Go ahead.
Ms. Hopkinson, do you have anything to add to this? Is the process working? A department head just had to come to a committee to ask for a grade change. Is this appropriate? Is this okay? We put these things in on the come? How we doing?
Well, we've only had, I think building management and IT are the first sort of out of the box to test this new policy. And it's a particular paragraph in the new compensation policy that says, if you want to make any mid-year changes in positions that you've budgeted, so you have your original budget and now you want to make changes after the budget has been adopted, that you have to go through this committee process. And so that is the part of the policy that is being tested right here.
Okay. And the changes that are being made here, do they affect next year's budget at all? Or I mean, is this isolated or?
Well, it depends. Every department right now, we're going through the 2025 budget process. Every department and office is literally just finalizing this week all of their positions. Offices and departments have the opportunity right now as part of the 2025 budget process to create new positions. So they can create new positions that didn't exist before for their 2025 budget and have that considered as part of the 2025 budget. This paragraph in the compensation policy is geared towards changes to your positions mid-year or after you've had your original budget adopted.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Labrillo. Deb, I saw you. I cut you off twice. I apologize.
To Ms. Hopkinson's point, this provision is really designed to push departments into that budgetary planning. So the process for which adding, changing, creating structure changes really is intended to be done in the budget process so that our budget is, accurate, correct going forward. And that's the opportunity where the department head can explain to their committee and to the board what they're trying to accomplish, that these changes are, pursuant to the goals of their department and necessary. And the entire compensation policy really encourages that planning at the budget time and kind of tries to hold everybody to that and say, if you need an emergency change, that is, you come back to the board and ask for it. So, this here today is what the policy was intended to do and is working the way it was designed. If that continues to be the way the board wants it designed. So I think in future years, as everyone adjusts to this new policy, because change is hard, I think our departments will get more in the budgetary planning for their next year when it comes to positions, now that they are kind of held to that roster of positions. And I don't think we'll see as many changes in future years as we might see in this year, our first year doing it.
We're going to bump our head.
We're going to bump our head here and there will always be emergencies that come about. So I would expect that even ongoing, you will see a couple of these each year because things happen and things change. So I venture to say that this is not here as a mistake or a problem in the policy, but as an intended part of the policy.
Miss Allen, I cut you off twice. I apologize. Did you have a question?
A difference between reorganization within a department or an office where someone says, I need to adjust these job descriptions, and I'm also going to adjust the pay scale but I have that built into my budget. So that's why I'm asking you to do this. And I'm not asking for extra money. I see a difference between that and someone coming in next year and saying, well, I had $1 million budget in 24. And now because you approved these other positions, well, now we have to go back and re-examine my budget. I don't think that's what we're facing. I think that our people are coming forward and saying, I can afford to do this, and I'm following protocol in saying, here's how I need to change job descriptions, here's how I need to change pay scale, and it's in my budget. And I think that's what you were describing. That's what you wanted to get to, was a planned process for that. It'll be different
I
when
think I'm supposed to say thank you at that point.
Yes.
Is that okay?
it'll be, can I just use the example of a development saying to us, I want to create a new unit of 3 people to monitor properties and bring them to adjudication if necessary. And it's such a much better way than the way we've been doing it, that I think that that organization is going to, that efficiency is going to raise us enough money to fix something in the county and pay for it or almost pay for it. Will you consider adding this new unit? And we did.
Yep.
Apples and oranges and pineapples?
Thank you and thank you and thank you. And on behalf, Anita, one second. On behalf of everybody that's worked on this, we asked for a cultural change and a leap of faith to try and get in front of something that might be 3 years down the road. But we were looking for a structural change in how we manage a budget that's 70% payroll. We have that. It's working. Yay us. This speed bump. Let's just get through this and we'll continue to go from there. Ms. Lewis?
So, very quickly, I would like to thank Roger for bringing this forward. So looking at it, 6 months, going along with our implementation, and then after 6 months coming saying, yeah, you got it almost right. Let's fix it perfect now. And on a side note, whoever wrote these job descriptions was way thorough. They're amazing. So I'm going to vote yes on both of these. That's all.
Thank you. I think we have to take them separately because that's the way they were motioned, but Savannah, could you call the vote, please?
Allen,
Alan, I.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Silva,
Silva, yes.
Tarver,
Carver, yes.
Linder,
Linda, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Tepe.
Except yes.
Passes.
Deb, could I ask you then just politely, the resolution authorizing the issuance of authorizing pay adjustment for the equity within a pay grade for a position, promotion in the building management department. This is just the second one. Yes. Mr. Kenyon seconds.
Sure.
I don't think we had, no discussion on that. Please call the vote.
Allen,
Aye.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Silva,
Silva, yes.
Tarver,
Tarver, yes.
Linder,
Linda, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Tepe.
Except yes.
Passes.
Motion for reports to be placed on file, please.
Unanimous consent.
Unanimous consent from Ms. Allen.
Absolutely.
Any opposition? Thank you so much. I see no need for executive session. Mr. Kenyon,
I move we adjourn and congratulations, sir.
there
You
we go, my
finished
friend.
Under the wire.
Under the wire. All in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Let's not get crazy.